What's up, guys? Amster Knows Hoops back today with another video, and today I get to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are currently sitting at about 8 and 10 in the West, about the 12th seed, I believe now. And this team is struggling. And what's interesting is they're not technically terrible in one area. They're not like bottom 10 in defense or bottom 10 in offense. This team is struggling. Today we're going to get into why, but before we do, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. We are 47 subs away from 1K. And that's an incredible feat. So, don't forget to share this with a friend. Let them know that greatness is here. But, without further ado, let's get into why the Minnesota Timberwolves have struggled so much more than I think even we all expected. And the first reason I'm going to bring up is Julius Randle. Now, obviously, I am not going to blame Julius entirely because as a scorer, he's actually been very good for this team, giving you about 35% from three on about 4 a game. So he's lowered his volume down, which is nice because I don't think he's that good of a three-point shooter to justify it. And just to make sure, so Randle's going to give you a good 22, 7, and 4, right? On about 50 from the field, which is good. 35 from 3, which about 5 a game, not terrible. Could be a lot better, or could be better. And about 80 from the line. I think the big issue is he's still giving you 3 turnovers a game. And again, at times you have like the, you know, the dumb-headed moment with him and Rudy at the end of the Raptors game. But I kind of want to show a couple of these turnovers and show like where I think Randle's struggles have been. Right? So he gets him here, right? And he just sort of waits, right? Like Ellis is able to just easily come over. I don't know what he's really waiting for there, right? Like shot clock's kind of going up, so I'm assuming he was just like, screw it, like I'll take the turnover that way, and we just move on. But even here, right, like they're going to go fight for the ball. Some of these clips are crazy, by the way. But right, so you get Randle here. Fox is pressing, and he just, like, I think Randle at times just is not a good enough offensive player. And I think with the lack of playmaking there is now, right, it's going to hurt them. Like, this is just dumb. Like, I don't know where, like, I get it, like, Chingun got in the way, but that's just a bad pass. Right? Like, he's not getting it there. And we can talk about this, too. Dante DiVincenzo has been terrible. Like, and this isn't clutch time. Here's the other thing. This is clutch time. Now, you were just a second ago doing these crazy... Why not just do that here? You had Ant right here. You got Dillingham right here. Both better three-point shooters. And this is Cat. He's dribbling, he's stopping, he's bounce passing it or lobbing it right up to Rudy and keeping the lead. But instead, it's a charge, and in clutch time, they're giving up a possession. And again, I'm not trying just to show Randle lowlights. This is not me saying Julius Randle is the only reason this team is losing, because he is far from it. However, I talked about this in my video when I did a breakdown of the trade. I still believe that this is a lose-lose trade for each side of the deal. A team that already was offensively struggling and needing a ball handler / distributor does not get one with Julius Randle. But, you know, he's providing you the scoring that you were expecting, which is good. But at the end of the day, you don't have that distributor. You don't have that playmaker. And instead, you have someone who makes a lot of boneheaded plays. And a lot of these games have been close, and it has been costly. So that's the big reason I would think that this team's struggling is Randle doesn't fit really on either side of the ball. I mean, he's a better defender than Cat, and that's been shown clearly throughout this season. Thankfully, because I don't know who on earth actually thought that Randle was worse than Cat. But either way, I think that shows why I think he's not a part of this puzzle for Minnesota. And I think that's a big reason why they've been struggling. And honestly, the second reason why it's something a little bit different, I don't think anyone's really talked about it. Obviously, you know, there's been the talk about Dante's been struggling. And, you know, I think the bigger one is honestly Jaden Mcdaniels, who this season is giving you about 11 a game, right? With about 4 boards, and then 2 assists a game, right? Which He's not necessarily a playmaker passer, which is fine. On 43 from the field and 29 from three on 4 threes a game. That is unacceptable, right? That's just terrible. I think his offense, quite frankly, a buddy of mine in the Discord, shout out to you, Garp, pointed out he is the only good to great defensive player that you never hear talked about their offensive deficiencies. His lack of ability to create, his lack of ability to consistently shoot and score. I think that's a big reason, right? Like, we're going to look at some of these 3-point shots he gets, right? Like, at some point, is the 3-point shot real? Like, this is a wide open jumper, right? Like, some of these will fall, but when you get into some of these games, like, you're losing to Portland, right? Like, at some point, right? Like, I don't know if this is just the jumper's not falling, right? It's just unlucky. But at some point, I think we just sort of have to acknowledge the reality, which is McDaniels can get hot as a shooter, but he's not good enough. Like, this is wide open, like, right? And he doesn't get, like, at some point, when do we acknowledge him for what he is, which is an incredible defender, but honestly, at times, an offensive liability. Like, in the playoffs, he had his moments, right, where he would shine and he would just absolutely, scorch it. But at the end of the day, reality would also come down to earth in playoff series, and we would see that he actually wasn't really that good of an offensive player. I think that's a big reason too. Because now, right, like, there is no cat there. There is no great spacer right now. Like, Naz Reid is basically the next best shooter after Ant. I think at times, right, like, Ant can only do so much, right? And we're seeing that offensively, this team struggles outside of him. They don't really have a lot of self-creators. They don't really have anyone that can create their own shot consistently or hit their shot consistently. Like, again, this is wide open, right? And you miss. Like, at some point, teams aren't respecting them either. Like, you see Fox points over and he runs to him, but he's not that, like, concerned. Like, teams are not trying to actively stop what they're doing to get him out, right? So even here, they sink off him. Obviously, you're going to close it out because he's still, like, a good enough shooter, right? He can hit shots occasionally, but that's not their game. Like, even now, they're sunk off him. Like, and teams got to hesitate to go over to him because, again, he can be left wide open and teams don't trust him. I think that's another big reason. I don't think a lot of people talk about it. Jaden McDaniels needs to be discussed more about the offensive liability that he could be at times. And then finally, we are going to talk about Anthony Edwards. And Ant right now is technically averaging a career high in points with 28.1 on 5 assists a game, 4 assists a game, 5 rebounds a game, with about 3 turnovers, which isn't very good because he only got 3 to 4 assists. 46 from the field, 43 from 3 on 11 threes a game. I do think that shot diet needs to come down from 3 personally. 81 from the line, right? And the final major reason that I think that this team has been struggling ultimately is that the burden on Anthony Edwards is just more than he can handle. I think he's an incredible player. I think he could be top 10 in the next year or two. However, I think the playmaking and passing that I talked about in that trade video, I don't think he's panned out. I don't really think he's developed that much as a passer or as a playmaker. So that hurts, right? He hasn't been able to really create more for his teammates. And at times, I mean, we've seen basically he's now trying to go ahead and say, okay, we don't have Cat, so I got to Superman this. And basically try and restore the threes that we are losing from Cat being gone. I don't think that's working out. So we're going to look at like this King game right here, right? And look at some of these shots and talk about where Anthony Edwards could have been better. Not just in this specific game, but I think it's a good enough reflection of like what he's doing throughout the season, right? So he gets Keon Ellis, right? And they run this little, off ball pin down. So Ant could get a staggered screen 3, right? Nice and easy, right? That's a great 3. And threes like that, I think, is where Ant's at his best. He gets a shot like this, right? A pull up, nice and easy. Like, I have no issue with Ant sort of opening his games with threes, right? And making teams respect him from the perimeter so that he is able to then use his athleticism and burst to do even more, right? Like, you see, now they had to respect the 3. and then he hits this, right? I think that is how you create if you're Ant. That is how you score consistently, and you don't need to run into certain problems, right? Like, again, this is an incredible start to the game. But then you get shots like this, where it's like, okay, clearly the shot's not falling. You could just bounce it to Rudy, right? Or even try and lob it. But instead, he goes with this decision to take this contested midi, and then everything sort of just falls apart. This is wide open catch and shoot, right? Like, that's nice and easy. I think Ant's threes need to be easy for him. I think he could create for himself at times from three, but I think it's not consistent enough, right? And that's a good pass, and then he gets here, and I like this choice, right? Like, so there's a couple things he could have done differently. So he gets to here. When they commit, Ant, I think, could have easily seen Julius and just kick it to him. Because Julius could have just settled for three, settled for a midi, and he probably would have made it. But instead, he goes for this little, like, contested layup, and it gets swatted away, and they're going on a 9-0 run, and things are falling apart, right? But ultimately, this one is just one of those, like, unfortunate misses, right? Like, that's something he makes most of the time anyways. So I'm not going to get on Ant for missing a shot that he normally makes, right? And then even then, Julius gets the bucket back. But I think at the end of the day, the burden on Anthony Edwards is more than he can handle. It's not saying that he's bad. It's not saying he's trash. It's just saying that at the end of the day, I don't think he's capable enough to create for others. They still need to find that point guard. And that's why I think they traded for Rob Dillingham to hope that they basically could get one on a rookie contract. But only now is he really starting to get burned. And then, you know, he's got to fit in with the offense. So then it's like, how long is that going to take? Right? I don't know. I think shots like this, too, like, why not drive? Like, I get they give you the space. First of all, Jay Crowder's on the Kings? Okay. Either way, though, I think here, right, you could easily argue they double over. Sabonis doesn't even notice Randle's right there open for three. And again, that's where I think at times Ant is still challenged as a player. And I think that people didn't talk about it a lot because, right, they made the conference finals. They did very good. Absolutely. And he'll make a good midi. But I think at the end of the day, right, shots need to be made for this team easier. And I don't think he's necessarily good enough to do that. So let me know what you guys think down below. Will Minnesota bounce back? Do you think that this is just their current state of affairs? It kind of is what it is, unfortunately. As always, this was Answer No Soups. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Have a beautiful rest of your day, guys. Peace out.